too. Mr. Earl, you're a supporter of H.R. 1, right?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Jessup, you're a supporter of H.R. 1, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jessup, is it true that state and local officials are currently required by law to remove inactive voters from their rolls?
Are you asking me in the sense of federal law or in state constitutional law, in Michigan's law?
And Michigan law, any law?
I would prefer not to answer that right now. I was prepared to get into that level of questioning.
Okay, Mr. Earl?
The question, Mr. Davis, is whether laws require the purging of voters from the rolls. In some states, yes, they do, unfortunately, and that's another tragic aspect of our flailing democracy that needs to be addressed.
All right. Mr. Jessup, do you want to lay out the standard in Ohio versus Husted and the procedures used to remove inactive voters from the rolls in the state of Ohio? Do you know?
Well, sir, I'm not a resident of the state of Ohio, so I would not want to speak to that part of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're part of an organization that operates in Michigan. We're talking about H.R. 1, which would then apply nationwide. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Earl, do you have any thoughts on the standard that was laid out in Ohio versus Husted and the procedures used to remove inactive voters from the rolls?
I followed that news very carefully. I don't have the legal standard in my head as I came here prepared to talk about.
I mean, it was a Supreme Court.
Yes.
It was a Supreme Court decision that has led to a 571-page bill that you both said you support. That's why I asked about the decision. So we heard in the first panel about the so-called problem with removing voters from registration rolls. And again, you two are here in support of H.R. 1. And I just wanted to get an understanding, because I thought it was my understanding that the Supreme Court was more than fair, and what was happening in Ohio was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's okay. I'll go to something that's a little less Ohio-based and Supreme Court-based. Mr. Jessup, appreciate, again, what you do. My goal is to get more people to the polls also. As a matter of fact, you mentioned Michigan State University. I represent 4 public institutions in central Illinois, 4 private institutions, 8 community college districts. No gerrymandering occurred in that district, I'm sure, in Illinois before it happened. But we also had an issue at the University of Illinois where so many students didn't take advantage of early registration programs that you even put out in Michigan. Therefore, that led to the long lines because we do have same-day registration. So that's an issue I think as you move forward you need to think about as an organization is how do you avoid those long lines? How do you encourage more early registration? Because we don't want long lines on Election Day either. But according to your bio, you're the executive director of Michigan Forward. And according to Michigan State filings, you're also a registered agent of Michigan Forward Urban Affairs, the Urban Affairs Group. It's an LLC. And Michigan Forward is a registered nonprofit, right? Let's say your organizations wanted to weigh in on a federal campaign. Can you walk us through how H.R. 1 would affect either of your organizations?
Well, as we know, like the disclosure pieces are the parts that will be an issue for us. I mean, having a nonprofit is very hard to raise millions of dollars to raise any ad money. But the great part about democracy is that before you get to the electoral part, you have to educate the voter. And we've done a very good job in working in a non-electoral fashion, educating voters on the issues that they work on 365 days a year. That's the reason why we had an increase of over 600,000 folks turning out to vote in 2018, because we did the groundwork 2 years prior. What are your issues? Not about the candidate, it's about the issue. And so I mean,
okay, I understand that, but do you understand that your organizations would have burdens in these reporting requirements?
And I'm telling you that we've had those burdens before this legislation came forward. We've worked around them, and we've been successful without it.
Hey, my time's almost up, and I got another question for you. I apologize, sir. In your written testimony, you also say H.R. 1, quote, clearly answers the call for a new Voting Rights Act using the template from states like Michigan, Florida, and Missouri, end quote. Can you tell us what self-imposed restrictions these states have adopted?
Self-imposed restrictions. Well, one great self-imposed restriction that we have in Michigan was the option to opt out of automatic registration. As I said earlier in my testimony as well, we talk about Richard Austin's pioneering effort of his motor voter law, that when you came to Michigan, if you were in Michigan, you're 16 years of age, you're ready to get your driver's license, you were encouraged to come and register to vote. So now we have a bill that says, hey, we don't want to do it automatically. If you want to opt out and you're at the Secretary of State, you're getting your driver's license, you don't have to register. That's how we keep our voter rolls clean. So we were being very conscious about our system and how we can make it better without adding any additional impediments.
Was that
So our motor voter law actually helps us to alleviate the problems we have on election day, and that with same-day registration helps young people really vote in a fluid fashion.
Was that a part of the Voting Rights Act?
I'm sorry?
Was that a part of the Voting Rights Act and the
Having an
decision?
option to opt out?
Yeah, what you're explaining.
I
with the
think this should
restriction.
be a new template, like, yes, instead of just
It
saying.
should be part of the Voting Rights Act.
Yes, you
Okay.
should have an option to opt out.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Gentlemen,